Thank you very much, Her Worship, the Deputy Mayor, the Acting CEO, councillors that are present, and everybody else, the employees. You are very important. When we came here and over the past years of observing the city of Windhoek, the focus and emphasis is always on the mayors, the councillors, this fight, this and this fight, that CEO, this CEO, that. But you are the guys that are doing the work. You are the one who are picking up the bins in the early hours of the morning while people are sleeping. You are the one that are cremating bodies. You are the one that are making sure that people are paid. You are the one that are counseling people. You are the one that are keeping our city clean. You are the one that are doing all sorts of things. You are the one that are attending to crime. You are the one that are dodging bullets from criminals. But the focus is never on you. Whatever the reason may be, we will not have time to go into it. But all we are saying is that it cannot be. It is not the type of city that we want to build while we are here. And we want to ensure that if you come to a place, you must either, if you are unable to do anything at all, at least leave it the way it is. But the idea is that you must improve it. Either you stagnate, if you are really struggling, keep it, keep the standards. But don't go down. At least be able to go up. So that's what we are trying to do, at least to where we are unable to transform and we are committed to transformation, we are going to make sure that we maintain the standards. But we are indeed committed to be able to do something. We made the employees from age category 55 to 60. It was quite a very interesting engagement because some of them have been here for 30 years. Miss Mocho, as an example, it's not that, you see, you are about what? 2,500 employees. And sometimes when we mention one, you feel that, why are you mentioning that one? Miss Mocho, yesterday was her last day. After spending maybe 27 years, I think, at the city of Windhoek. She is a section head responsible for funeral and cremation. Those are the people that see bodies on a daily basis, that see families that are sad on a daily basis. And yesterday was her last day. But coincidentally, it was also a council meeting. So we called her to come. We called her last minute to come and speak. And also just on the last day to make sure that we demonstrate to her that we value her. So the approach generally with that age category and what came out of the engagement, those are people who are concerned with legacy. Most of them are concerned about what is going to happen to the city that we've worked hard for. You know, it's painful to see something going down that you have dedicated your life to. And I don't think this is going to be our preoccupation. Most of you still have about quite a number of years left. We still think that you are a group that could actually help transform not only the city, but it can also help transform our country. Remember that Windhoek contributes 33% to the country's GDP. So meaning if something does not go right with Windhoek, something would absolutely go wrong with Namibia. So sometimes certain things that we do, that we intend to do, it is also from that standpoint, because we expect and we believe that you should indeed be able to make a significant contribution. We know some of you are supervisors, some of you are not supervisors. But the current system that is in place, as mayor and councillors, you engage with executive, with CEOs, and that's it. We never get an opportunity to engage with you. So we wanted to have this opportunity to break the barriers so that you can engage with us directly if you are brave, if you are not scared, if you are committed. But it doesn't mean that if you don't speak, you are not committed, but maybe you're just a good person. You know, you want everything good for everybody. I'm told as you proceed, as you come, there are suggestion boxes in there. Something that is wrong, be it corruption, be it ideas of progress, anything else that you want to say, you put them in those boxes. They will come straight to the office of a mayor. We will attend to it. We have received wonderful ideas from employees, ordinary employees as they bump into you in the corridors. We've also received tip-off about corruption. I remember we had to put up an operation of somebody who has just been, the guy is an ordinary employee and he's driving all these fancy cars and he's having multiple properties because he's running a parallel system that is sucking from the services of the city. So instead of the city getting this, it goes to him. He doesn't apply for any promotion, for any vacancy, because he does not want to stay away from that mine. But that information came from an employee who's committed, and that employee is not in management. So that's why it's very important, and each one of you can make a significant contribution to the growth and development of our city. So I hope that you are indeed going to speak out. For instance, at the last meeting, colleagues from building control, and he was receiving a translation, and he says, all this building that we have, if something is broken, it must be repaired. In the entire city, there are 2 people that do building maintenance. 2 people. If the door is broken, so those 2 people must come and find a way. We never got it from any report. We never got it from anybody else. It is those employees who stood up by themselves and say, the entire Windhoek is only the 2 of us. If I'm not well, and maybe the colleague, something is wrong with him, the maintenance would come to a standstill in Windhoek. But that came out of those engagements. So it's obviously something that we have to attend to, something that cannot continue like that. Some employees say, in our department, we work with stakeholders and we expect payment to be done, and payment is simply just not done. And as a result, work is not done. So those are the things that we are attending to. They are being attended to. And of course, strategic executives were also present at those meetings. They are also present here. And they have already begun to attend to those initiatives. But if a platform like that was not there, we wouldn't have known. But you colleagues are also in the group of the economically active group. Because remember, we need to have electricity on so that industry can do their work. We need to supply water so that industry can do their work. We need to give fitness certificates so that businesses can continue. So we need to give counseling to people so that they don't commit suicide, they go back to work. So all those things are quite very important, that the economy of the city, the economy of the country cannot go ahead if we are not making sure that the city is in good hands. So I want to provoke your thoughts and ideas on this question. And the question that we're going to be dealing with is, and it's very important for you to pay attention to it, who and what is going to constitute the Windhoek Help Mekaar? You will understand. Help Mekaar is an Afrikaans word. It means what? Helping one another. So you understand why we are invoking that analogy of Help Mekaar. So I really want you, because sometimes when people complain about colonialism, complain about the whites, and they only focus on the negatives. But today I'm going to do something unusual for you to think about. Why is it that the Afrikaners have become the economic powerhouse that they are? What is it that the Afrikaners did for them to be who they are today? And what possible lesson that we can learn? And I can already tell you, which is what I theme as part of what I want to provoke, is this notion and concept of Help Mekaar. My Afrikaans is very weak, but I hope you understand what is meant. So by 1902, after the Anglo Boer War, the Boers were, I'm going to use the Boer interchangeably with Afrikaners. The Boers were having this fight with the British, and it's called the Anglo Boer War. So by 1902, the Boers had suffered a devastating defeat by the British. About 30,000 farmhouses were destroyed by the British. But remember, the word Boer comes from farmer, and they are the farmers. So about 30,000 farmhouses by 1902 have been destroyed by the British as part of the Anglo Boer War. About 27,000 Boer civilians died during the Anglo Boer War. So there was nothing that they could do in the rural areas and in the farms, in the plus where they were, because of what has happened. So their only solution was come to town. So there was a lot of urbanization. They were now coming from the rural areas into towns. And they were now at the mercy of the British, of the English. From the farmers, from the producers, they ended up being the employees of the English. Because sometimes when you speak of whites, we only look at white as everybody with a particular pigmentation. But that's what has happened. So the Afrikaners ended up working for the British in those urban centers that they went in. Now, as you know, the First World War started in 1914. The government of Louis Botha from 1914 came to German Southwest Africa, to Namibia. They came to topple the German government on behalf of the British. Now, the Afrikaners who were defeated by the British in the Anglo Boer War were very, very angry with the Louis Botha's government that came to fight on the side of the British, who had actually created problems, killed 27,000 Afrikaners during the Anglo Boer War. What actually then happened is that about 11,000 Afrikaners, the rebels, started rebelling against the Louis Botha's government. They looted shops. These looting things that we are seeing. Afrikaners were also looting shops in 1914. They started looting shops. They started protesting. They started raiding kettles and all those things. But they were poorly organized in their rebellion. So as a result, the government of Louis Botha, they decided now to punish them. They fined them. They had to pay a lot of fines. So because of these 11,000 rebels that now needed to pay the fines, it became a very serious problem in the Afrikaner community. So they decided now, in 1916, they decided to establish what is called the Help Mekaar movement. The movement to help one another. So they needed now to put money together in order to get the money and then pay the fines of those rebels that were fighting, the rebels against the government. Now, a year earlier, in 1915, they had established an Afrikaner newspaper called Die Burger. J.E. de Villiers, one of the Afrikaner businessmen from Paarl, wrote a letter to the Burger, that Afrikaans newspaper, and indicated that in order to help the rebels, he offered to donate 500 pounds on condition that 500 other Afrikaners would pay 100 pounds each to this cause of the rebels, in order for them now to be able to pay off the fine that their children and the soldiers have now gotten. So, and this effort really went very well. This Help Mekaar movement went very well to an extent that they were able to pay off the debt of all these 11,000 rebels. After they have settled that, an amount of 92,000 pounds remained. Because the Help Mekaar movement organized themselves across the 4 provinces then of the Union of South Africa. So after they paid and they settled, 92,000 British pounds still remained. So the Help Mekaar movement took that money, divided it along the provinces, and then they gave it to the movement to pay for the fees of their children in those provinces. So they are now able to send their children to school and do a lot of things. So what this Help Mekaar movement went to do, it went to be the foundation. This is already 1918 that we are talking about. We are not talking about apartheid yet. We are talking about what the Boers did after they were defeated by the Anglo Boer War, after they were extremely poor. They didn't have anything. 30,000 households of them were destroyed by the British. 27,000 of them died at the time. They were poor, uneducated, they didn't have anything else, and they were left with no choice but to migrate into cities to be employees of that. Years later, they organized a rebellion. It was not successful. They were fined. They mobilized resources to pay off the fine, and the remainder they send it for the education of their children. So this De Burger newspaper helped to mobilize that national consciousness and Afrikaner nationalism. It was articulating about they need to have confidence of self, they need to work with one another in this Help Mekaar movement, articulating those perspectives and how they need to organize themselves. Now, in that year, and it's a very important year, 1918, through that Help Mekaar movement and that Afrikaner nationalism that has been propagated by the De Burger newspaper, they established a number of institutions. They helped one another and they established quite a number of institutions that was now going to help them move forward. One such institution is said Afrikaanse Nasionale Lewens Assuransie Maatskappy. Do you know what that means? It is what? It's Sanlam. So we just go the Sanlam, we have policies at Sanlam. They established it in 1918. Sanlam stands for Suid-Afrikaanse Nasionale Lewens Assuransie Maatskappy. Okay, that's Sanlam. That's one organization that they established. The second company that they established in 1918 again is called Suid-Afrikaanse Nasionale Trust and Assuransie Maatskappy. Santam. This Santam insurance that we see here was already established in 1918 as part of that Help Mekaar movement. There's another one that they also established. It's called Afrikaanse Verbond Begrafenis. Yeah? Begrafenis. Ondermijning beperk. Ja? Onderneming beperk. What is that? Afbob. So what was happening now since we are in the corona year? What it actually meant in 1918, there was what is called the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu was more deadly than corona. It killed between 20 to 50 million people in the whole world. So the Afrikaners, as part of that Help Mekaar movement, they see that a lot of their people are dying and they needed to give them a decent burial. Then they established AFBOP as part of this Help Mekaar, as part of this Help Mekaar movement. One of the other things that they also did in 1918 again, the Victoria College became the University of Stellenbosch. So these are the institutions that they created during that time. AFBOP, since 1922, has been burying the presidents, heads of states in South Africa from 1922 to Mandela. Something that was simply just established by Afrikaners as part of this Help Mekaar movement. As we speak, 96% of AFBOP policy holders are black. By 2018, AFBOP asset value was at 17 billion. So every time I say, no, I have my coffin at AFBOP, without understanding the historicity. Now remember already, after the Anglo Boer War, the Boers didn't have anything. They came together, they pulled together. Some of them were even just paying off these fees. It's almost like you are convicted and then you must now pay off the AFBOP that we are talking about today. That's the history of it. From those humble beginnings. And they were so organized and they were so coordinated in terms of what they wanted to achieve. People like D.F. Malan. D.F. Malan was actually the editor of Die Beggar, who later became Prime Minister. W.A. Hofmeyr, who was one of the earliest chairperson of National Pers, which is the company that owns Die Beggar, who was also the chairperson of Santam, the chairperson of Sanlam, was the one who recruited D.F. Malan to this institution. As we're speaking today, by 2018, Sanlam was already in 36 countries in the world. In fact, Sanlam logo, motto, it is, I attempted to write it down, the Afrikaans translation, but I will struggle. It says, born from the Afrikaner nation to serve the Afrikaner nation. But now just think about it. A people whose household were destroyed. We're not talking about apartheid yet. But they were able to pull themselves together. From 1918 to today, both AFBOP, Santam, and Sanlam are more than 100 years. Group of people who were completely helpless pulled themselves together as part of the Help Mekaar movement. Now those institutions are the ones that we run to today. How did they do it? This is what they did in terms of private businesses and private activities. But also, although they have succeeded and done that in business, there was a lot of Afrikaners that were still unemployed at the time. So they needed to find actually a solution. And the Afrikaners the Boers keep jumping from one crisis to the other, from one problem to other, and they continue to pick themselves up. After the Anglo Boer War, after the 11,000 rebels that were fined, in 1929, the world experienced this Great Depression. The economy was doing very bad. And by 1933, there was a terrible drought, just like the one that we're experiencing. We experienced, I think, 2-3 years ago. And because of those problems, the problem of poor whites and poor Afrikaners still continued. that problem of Arambul, as they call it. So the Americans sponsored the investigation into this white poverty question in South Africa with the Carnegie Foundation, who then ended up establishing that commission. They wanted to find out what is actually the root causes of this poor, of the Arambul problem. And that led now to the first National Economic Congress that was convened in 1939. So at that Congress, they agreed to mobilize funds to support Afrikaner businesses. And that fund was to be run and spearheaded by Sanlam. Because the situation was so bad that by 1936, the per capita income of Afrikaners averaged 86 pounds compared to 142 pounds for other whites. So the situation was terrible. So they organized at the state level, at the government level. So as a result, then they established quite a number of institutions now, because the ones that I was talking about, those Sanlam, Santam, AFBOB, those ones were just established to solve the problems of Afrikaners in the private sector, to employ their children, build their economy, and do all those things. But at the government level, they went to establish ESCOM, they went to establish ISCO, FOSCOL, SASOL, and all those institutions in order to have some sort of industrialization and have massive employment for their children, for them to be able to do that. So I'm now just giving you something like this for you to think about. That these institutions that we have here, including people such as Anton Rupert, Oppenheimer, and all those Afrikaner rich people, the billionaires of Stellenbosch, they are all coming as part of this Help Mekaar movement. So that basically means that at one point, people in society were just concerned about a simple question: how do we help our children that are now being punished by government? They put money together to pay off that. And after putting money together to pay off that, there was something that remained. They sent their children to school. They established universities. It's not just Stellenbosch, there's many other universities that they went to establish. I'm just trying to give you a context. From a simplistic orientation, from humble beginning, people can actually come together and say, we can transform a country, we can transform society. Every Afrikaner that you find here that is rich, there is no Afrikaner that can claim, when I study their history, they cannot claim in South Africa not to have benefited from that Help Mekaar movement. Yeah, whether you are looking at from the Broederbond, Afrikaner Brotherhood, and things like that. Because that generation of Hofmeyr, that generation of Anton, that generation of Oppenheimer, and many others that continues to come, those are the generation that continue to succeed one another and continue. And by the way, they were also greatly involved in politics. By the time the National Party came to power in 1948, they already found the machinery in place. In fact, the collapse of apartheid was not because they were defeated by the ANC, because Afrikaners' businesses realized that our businesses are actually under threat. We can no longer continue to do that. We can no longer export because apartheid is declared as a crime against humanity. We are under sanction. So do away with this apartheid thing, negotiate with Mandela and everybody else so that we can keep our economy going. So I'm giving you this example for you to begin to think that it is possible for a people with a common purpose, no matter their circumstances, for them to be able to come together and do something. Now, when you study these Afrikaners, you discover that every great thing that they've done, apart from apartheid, of course, it always came from the crisis. It came from the defeat of the Anglo Boer War. It came from fundraising for the rebels that have been punished. It came from the Great Depression of 1929. It came from that drought of 1933. It came from that National Congress on the Economy that they organized of 1936. So it came from chances, from the circumstances where things were really bad. They pulled themselves together and they continued to go forward. Why is it that we cannot do the same in an independent society? We can even do better. If they can create AFBOB after the Spanish flu, what are we creating after the corona flu? That is going to be a durable solution for the next 100 years of their of their children. The Afrikaners' children, their generation after generation, for 100 years. You create an institution in 1918, and then for the next 100 years, we have a guaranteed generation and generations of people. Santam, Sanlam, many institutions like that. ShopRite and PEP, the same. I think ShopRite and PEP are owned by the same Afrikaner family. It's the same Help Mekaar mentality. We've started an initiative called the Windhoek Education Fund. I would assume, are those not forms on the tables? Bagonja? The forms, are they there on the tables? All we are saying, from October 2021 to October 2022, as part of Help Mekaar, I've donated 500 every month to be deducted to go to the fund. We've already asked the CEO to create a budget vote. This is not for me. But for us to have an education fund in Windhoek, for the residents of Windhoek, for our children, and of course the education fund must also have a component for it, for the employees. You are here for 27 years like Ms. Mocho, you leave, and your child have no relation to the institution that you have worked for 27 years. So if we are able to commit, like what the Afrikaners committed in 1918, and we create an education fund, and we contribute for a year, through whatever deduction is it that can come from your salary, we can guarantee that your children, even if you have retired, the fact that you contributed, there must be some formula to say, how does your children benefit from that? And we need to do that now. Nobody plants a tree and hope to enjoy the shades today. So with that Help Mekaar, remember I asked from the beginning, who is going to constitute and in what manner and form is the Windhoek Help Mekaar movement going to be? The education fund is one of those initiatives that we can do for the next 100 years. We've created a company called Nova Actus Holdings. It's a company that is owned by the city because all we do here is just tenders. You walk there, you work for 30 years or 20 years or 15 years. Some youngster here who have gotten a tender in the city just insult you there in the street. And you are here dedicated, working every time. Look at these guys that we give tenders to. What do they do? What contribution do they make to society? It's just because they are relatives of maybe the mayor, the relative of the secretary to the mayor, the relative of the CEO, relative of the SE, manager, section head. It's a problem. We are not saying we can do everything, but there are things that we can do ourselves. Help Mekaar. Yeah? We have 24 hectares of land there in Simbabasia. And we have said, no, we're not going to go on tender. We must do those things ourselves. In my office there, I'm secured by some youngsters. Somebody have gotten a tender. At the same time, we have city police that we pay. But the mayor is secured by security guards. They are armed only with their cell phones. Most of the time are on their Facebook. So you see, we are removing a lot of corrupt people from positions. They can come mad and just come to our offices here and shoot us. And can these youngsters really protect the mayor? I'm not saying I need protection. I can defend myself. But I'm trying to explain, why do we need security guards when we have a city police? And you know what is so scandalous, eh? When I went to the city police headquarters, at the door there's security guards. So even our city police is guarded by security guards. And we must have confidence In the college, so the security guards are in charge here. Security guards are guarding the mayor. Security guards are protecting the city police from who I don't know. Yeah? So then you start wondering, this thing. The world contractors are the same. There 600 of them. So when we came, there was supposed to be a tender. Apparently, wrote hope one person get tenders. When we came here, they were very happy already because it was at the procurement. The tender was almost given. We stopped that. We said, no, we are not going ahead with securities. Why? We need to see what is it that we are going to do. Nova Actus must do those things. We are not going ahead with the tenders for cleaners. Why can't we just employ our... That's what is happening there. You know, these guys, the security young men, those young security guards come to my office and they show me their pay slip. It's so painful. They are paid 2,200, but we pay 8,000 per security guard. So the entire 6,000 goes to these guys and they go to Dubai. And those are somebody's children. And then can you imagine, no, I've been working for the city of Windhoek for 10 years and you've been a security guard getting 2,000. What nonsense is that? If we are able to do it ourselves, that's 8,000. We are even able to divide to say we are going to pay those security guards maybe 4,000. And we will still save another 4,000. Help Mekaar. For Windhoek. So, even here, we have now started the restaurants here. And we are probably going to branch out. We are now, those food, there is no tender there. We are cooking our own food, nice food, cheap. You don't have to go and run and go elsewhere. And it's running successfully. Probably, first it was breaking even, now it's even making a profit. We are not enriching some other person who's just there. We need to value ourselves. So if we don't value ourselves, so please, we hope that we can really put our heads together, like what the Afrikaners did after the Anglo Boer War, conceptualize the versions of our own Help Mekaar. So that when you are 60 one day, when you retire, when you leave, you are going to say, in the year 2021, from October to October, we've been contributing $100 from our salaries, and that's how we established that fund. I can guarantee you it is possible. It is possible for the Windhoek Education Fund to be as big, even better than NASFAF. So that we are able to say, for the children that are here in Windhoek, we cannot just be a city where some people are born here, some people they school here, some people they stay here, but they don't thrive. It is us from the village. Somebody was talking about Jobis from Omarala. Yes, it's true. It is us from the villages that come and thrive in Windhoek. Because maybe we are determined. Maybe because we have proper leadership at those villages. Maybe people pray for us at those villages. But what is happening to our children in Windhoek? My son was born in Windhoek. What's going to happen to him? Why is it that we just forget about Windhoek as an identity? What type of Help Mekaar framework are we going to put together to transform this city, to change this city, to make this city better? This is not something that can be done just by politicians. And I know I'm not asking you to lose faith in politicians, but you should not just rely on politicians to solve your problems. Because here is sometimes in political parties, maybe you are beautiful, then you get elected. Maybe your voice is deeper, you get elected. Maybe you are related to whoever, you get elected. Maybe you donate meat to whoever, you get elected. So it is a very complex and complicated process. You as employees are very important. That's why we are emphasizing that you don't need to leave the city to politicians. Present ideas, because sometimes we will be fighting one another. And I predict that over the next few weeks and months, we are going to be fighting each other as politicians. But the city must remain. The institution must continue going forward. Electricity must remain on, whether the politicians are fighting one another or not. But what we can do is to give direction, to give leadership, to give inspiration, to also encourage you to continue working hard. But it's you. Some of you, when we came in, you told us that we always wanted to cut off the water, but we were stopped by the politician. We said, no, go ahead, cut. Whether it's State House, cut. So within that week, I was told we got close to 100 million. That's why for the first time in the history of the city, we were able to clear our debt with Nampower. We don't owe anybody. We are just owed by people. But it is those employees who stood up and said, no, these people are not paying us. And they had not been paying for the past 20 years. If we don't have strong employees, if we don't have committed employees, if we don't have disciplined employees, if we don't have employees with integrity, if we don't have employees with courage, the Windhoek Help Mekaar will not work. We will not be able to do anything. Politicians will just come and go. But you are the people who are here every time. In fact, our politicians are not full-time. So don't leave the city in the hands of a politician. We will support your ideas. We want to hear from you. You know better. You have done these things in 30 years. Some of you have been here when the city was up and when it went down and when we are trying to bring it up, I think. So you are here. You see those things. You can advise us better. You have seen politicians come and go. You have seen good ideas that no one wants to listen to. For instance, there's a medical doctor here who, with his own money, who came to the city and wanted to build a park for the children in Eros. And the proposal was then turned down by the politician because they said, no, we can only allow you to do that if you go and build in Okuriangava. And the guy said, no, but I don't live in Okuriangava. There's a place next to where I stay there. Why must I go and do it there? Why can't the people in Okuriangava be empowered to do the same? So then they rejected it. An employee came to us and said, this person with his own money, the city does not have money to do these things. This employee came to us and said, this is the proposal. And we said, resubmit it. It was resubmitted, then we approved it. Another employee came to us and told us, no, the problem why we are not dealing with transport and traffic in the city is because over the past 5 years, there's been zero budget given to that traffic division. So they couldn't put up traffic lights, they couldn't do anything. Because the employee disclosed those things and it was shocking, so that meaning there's a backlog. So we asked them to give us now all those traffics that the traffic lights, the robots that are outstanding. And there are probably about 40 of them. We were able to mobilize with Road Fund Administration and ask them to sponsor. And they gave us about 2.4 million. We're now able to put the robots that side of is Evelyn Street, Ochomise Road, and then you continue with the fire brigade, and it's congested there. It actually, the person who's the city employee, there are two city employees, one of them lives in Komasdal, one of them lives in Osona. The one who's in Osona will reach here faster than the one in Komasdal. Just because somebody did not do that, what they're supposed to do, and an employee came. So it's not because we put those robots, we fundraise and those robots are there. It's because that employee who came to us and told us that this thing need to be done. Lastly, an employee from HR wellness team, whose name shall not be mentioned, there was UN AIDS coordinator, our country director who was coming, and this young lady pretended to come to brief me about, because I'm always briefed so that I know when I engage outsiders. So she briefed me, and then she said, oh, there's one more thing that I just wanted to say. And then we see you guys that you are doing very well with the people out there, but what about us? We also have problems, we also have, in all the stuff. They started pushing all the issues there. But then I started thinking, but it's true. We are doing very well going to community. Even people who go and occupy land, councillors run there, Kwenani them, they run there to talk to them. But here are people who dedicate their lives to the city every day. Some of them are at the call center for 24 hours. But we are not listening to them. We are not giving them an opportunity. But our diary is full. Meeting ambassadors, meeting ministers, meeting artists, meeting chance takers, meeting entrepreneurs. But we are not meeting our employees. Yeah? Had it not been for that employee who have understood the Help Mekaar mentality that we are doing to introduce in Windhoek, we wouldn't be having this gathering today. So I hope to hear from you, and I hope that you have put your suggestion in there, and let the conversation begin. And we hope to learn a lot, think about the Windhoek Help Mekaar, and go and do a lot of study. I'm also going to improve my Afrikaans. I was in Stellenbosch for 2 years, but I learned Fokol. My Afrikaans is by a week. I made a mistake. I was thinking that no, I will not speak Afrikaans. These Boers are arrogant. So when they speak to me in Afrikaans, I would respond in English. I realized it was a foolish decision, because I would have, now when I'm reading some books are in Afrikaans, and I'm interested in Help Mekaar, and I'm struggling now to explain Help Mekaar to you. Had I just learned Afrikaans then, it would have been easier, isn't it? So thank you very much. I hope to learn from you. The Deputy Mayor is also here to hear from you. That's how serious we take you. And you are a very important generation. People who have seen you are not too young. And you also are not too ambitious anymore. But you're also not too old also. So you are there somewhere in the middle. It's Alice Mumwe, so you should be able to assist us. Thank you very much.